Hey folks, Colin Richards here. I'm Denver's Biblical Investment Advisor, and I'm thrilled to be talking to you today about methods and strategies you can implement that will help you prosper through both good times and bad. I would love to chat with you and discuss your specific questions today. We offer a complimentary second opinion at Lord & Richards. Give us a call, 720-372-0400. Again, that's 720-372-0400. And we want to encourage you to drop by our website, lordandrichards.com. We've got some great material there for you, past shows as well as articles that will be helpful to you. Today's show is Failing to Plan is Planning to Fail. Failing to Plan is Planning to Fail. And again, this is Colin Richards, Denver's Biblical Investment Advisor, and we're going to be taking one slice of the comprehensive planning process today and building that out for you a little bit so you get a better idea what's really involved when we say that at Lord & Richards we do comprehensive financial planning. You know, so few advisors have elected to do this. It's such a small fraction. Very few people that I'm meeting with have completed a comprehensive financial plan. In our book, a comprehensive financial plan, to be valuable, to really help you become what we at Lord & Richards call financially independent, is going to have four key components that are going to drive independence in each of those four areas. So if you want to test these out, if you are one of the very small percentage of people who have a comprehensive financial independence plan, we call it a financial independence roadmap here at Lord & Richards. If you're one of the few people that have a comprehensive plan, here's a great way to test what you've got in your hands. Number one, do you have a written income plan that makes sure you are not going to run out of money before you run out of life? And here's a corollary to that. Does that written income plan make sure that a portion of your income, a substantial portion of it, comes from guaranteed sources? Things like pensions, okay, government pensions, some private pensions we would call guaranteed because they have guaranteed components to them. And of course, personal pensions that you put together using strategies such as annuities. Anything that will provide a guaranteed income stream should be a cornerstone of a good comprehensive plan. And you know, I'd be real skeptical of brokers or so-called advisors who claim to offer a comprehensive plan, but really eliminate income-producing strategies from the portfolio. Okay, so do you have an income plan? Will it make sure you don't run out of money? And does it have guaranteed components to it? Why is that last statement so important? Well, you know, when it comes to guaranteed income, a study is done every other year by the Department of Health and the University of Michigan called the Health and Satisfaction in Retirement Study. And it's based heavily on individual research, highly regarded research of economists and so forth. And in that study, part of that study involves surveys of people in retirement, and those who have the highest levels of satisfaction, who have the lowest levels of depression, the fewest medications being taken, the healthiest lifestyles tend to have more sources of income that are guaranteed. They're living on a pension or something that provides a sense of stability and security. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Why we would find that to be a healthier way to live. Hey, I'm not having to worry every month where my paycheck is coming from. Isn't that what it's like if you have a good job before retirement? And shouldn't that be what it feels like after retirement? So question number one, if you do have a financial plan, is does it contain a comprehensive income plan that makes sure you don't run out of money before you run out of life, both you and your spouse? Okay, the title of today's show is Failing to Plan is Planning to Fail. This is Colin Richards. I'm Denver's Biblical Investment Advisor, and I and my team of investment advisors are serving clients across the Front Range, and we're thrilled to be offering you today a clear process. We call it a financial independence roadmap. It doesn't have to be complicated, it doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to take eternity to put together. But does it have these core elements? That's what we're asking today. So first element, an income plan. Second element, and if you're just joining us, by the way, let me not be negligent to tell you how to reach out to us, because we're available right now to take your call. We have investment advisors available to assist you and answer your specific questions. 720-372-0400. This is the Lord & Richards Show. Colin Richards, Denver's Biblical Investment Advisor. talking about planning today. 720-372-0400. One more time on that number, 720-372-0400. Or, of course, check us out at lordandrichards.com. So the second question we want to ask is, not only do you have an income plan that's comprehensive, that makes sure you have a substantial portion of your income coming from guaranteed sources such as Social Security, pensions, and annuities, but number two, do you also have a risk mitigation plan, a risk reduction or mitigation plan? I got to tell you, most people do not. Just like most people do not have an income plan. Even if they've gone to the time and expense of having some person prepare what is often called a comprehensive plan but lacks these core elements, even folks who've taken that time seldom have what I call a risk reduction plan. And how do we come about that type of planning? Well, it starts in our financial independence roadmap process. Think of a roadmap. You've got to know where you are today. Have you ever gotten lost on vacation? Could you imagine heading off into the wilderness of the Rockies and not having access to a map or GPS planning software? I remember the really tragic story that occurred with people driving off of cliffs using Google Maps. Okay, so having a GPS isn't always a solution. Okay, I liken that to robo-advising, right? It lacks the human component that will keep you out of danger. But do you have in your roadmap a starting point? And that starting point is, what do I currently own and how bad could it hurt me during a downturn? This is the beginning point for a risk reduction plan. Let me ask you that question. What do you currently own and how bad could it hurt you during a downturn? Maybe you'll say, well, Colin, it won't hurt me unless I sell it. Well, sure it can. You know, an asset that drops in value now has to undergo a process we call recovery. I remember having surgery recently on my knee. My surgeon did an outstanding job, but yet I still had to go through recovery. First, getting over the anesthesia, getting over the pain, regaining strength and control. For those who had devastating losses a few years back during the financial crisis of 08-09, their recovery could last as long as 08 to 2013, 5 years. Can you imagine wasting 5 years of the growth that should be taking place in your portfolio because you're just trying to get back to where you started? That's a waste, right? Take that back a few years. Those who experienced the devastating downturn of the dot-com bubble burst in 2000 and had exposure to that market, experienced 40, 50, 60% downturns. It took them from 2000 all the way, in many cases, to 2007, if their portfolio reflected much of what you would find in the S&P 500. It took you all that time just to break even on the underlying value of your investments. Is that forward progress? Well, if you're not going forward, you're recovering. Wouldn't it have been better to have forward progress and simply to sit out these major market collapses? You say, well, that sounds like market timing, Colin. Well, it doesn't have to be. There are numerous vehicles available to us today that will protect your principal during periods of market decline. Usually they're longer term in nature. So that doesn't mean we put all of your assets in there, but would it make sense for us to have a portion of our assets positioned to protect us on the downside during market downturns? Well, you betcha. And those who did reap the rewards. Now, I'm not talking about cash or putting your money in the mattress, but I am talking about implementing principal protection as part of an overall plan. Because as we said at the beginning, failing to plan is planning to fail. When we sit down with you, we will do what's called an analysis. We call it a stress test of your current portfolio, running it through Morningstar as well as other external software, up to 70 different historical and hypothetical simulations to determine how much risk you're carrying. And more importantly, does it align with what you have shared with us is your real comfort with risk and downturn? That's so important because so few people have that conversation with their advisor. You ever sat down and come up with that number? How much are you willing to go down before a change would be needed? Do you know most people are sharing with me 5 to 15% in that range if they're retirees, but yet their portfolios are revealing that if we were to go through another significant downturn, you might lose 25, 35, or even 45%? Unbelievable. But that's the reality today. So here's my question to you. If you don't have a risk reduction plan, does it make sense to get one done, especially if you can receive a complimentary stress test on your portfolio? That's something we do at Lord & Richards. If you'll give us a call at 720-372-0400, again, 720-372-0400, we'll set you up for a complimentary risk analysis to determine what level of risk you're carrying in your current portfolio and assets. And beyond that, we'll do a truly comprehensive analysis of everything about those investments if it's available in public knowledge, okay, if they're public companies and so forth. So you'll know at the end of that process more than you probably ever knew or wanted to know about your investments, and you'll be in a great position then from that starting point to take off on the road to financial independence. What do we need to do to adjust the risk and yet still reach our goals? So again, this is Colin Richards, 720-372-0400, 720-372-0400, talking about planning to fail as a result of failing to plan. So what are the important elements of really having a comprehensive financial plan in place? Whether you consider yourself rich, poor, or in between, we all need to have a plan. It might be less complicated if we have lower asset numbers. It might be more complicated if we have higher asset numbers. Wherever you are, this is an appropriate step to take, and we call it a financial independence roadmap offered by the advisors, the investment advisors of Lord & Richards right here in Denver and across the state and really across the country from Florida all the way to Hawaii. So 2 questions so far. Do you have in place a clear plan to make sure your income doesn't run out? If not, why not? And are you willing to get one in place? Number 2, do you have a clear plan to reduce risk in your portfolio to reflect what you really feel about risk? And we have a process I didn't mention that will help determine your personal level of risk, okay, and what is appropriate for you. And it's responsive to you. It's not us telling you what to think. Thirdly, do you have a plan in place, a written plan to deal with the potentially devastating costs of long-term care illness? Again, failing to plan is planning to fail. So my question to you is, what do you have in place to make sure that you don't fall prey to the number one cause of bankruptcy in retirement, long-term care or nursing home care? Yeah, it affects 70% of us. As we get older as a society, as we develop better treatments and better drugs and we live longer, long-term care is becoming a reality for most of us. You know, back when Social Security was created, most folks died before full retirement age. Nowadays, we're living 25 years beyond that and more. Is it not likely that we may, during that period, find ourselves unable to dress ourselves or to feed ourselves or to take care of ourselves in some way? We call these the activities of daily living. And isn't it true that some of us will experience some cognitive impairment? We hate to think about that, don't we? But if we don't plan, you know what the natural weight is of gravity? Think of it as a stream of water headed down a steep street with 2 gutters on the sides. On the one side is taxes, and on the other side is hospitals and nursing homes. And we're talking about the latter. If you don't plan, your money is very likely to end up in those 2 places and not in the hands of family or other places you'd much rather see it go to. So here's my question. Do you have a plan in place? Well, folks may answer me, well, I've got a long-term care policy. Great. That is a tool. That is a vehicle. That is not a plan. Because how do you know if that long-term care policy is enough? The only way we can do that is to run your budget out through the rest of your life and determine if a long-term care illness would bankrupt you or take away so much of your assets that it would become uncomfortable and demand attention. That's the only way. Once we know that, then we can come back and decide, well, if you're going to buy long-term care insurance, how much do you need? What is prudent? What types of additional features are necessary? I guess what I'm trying to impress upon you folks today, in all seriousness, is that purchasing of products and investing in the market without knowledge coming from a comprehensive plan really sets you up to fail. I see these things all the time. I see hodgepodges of investments that have no continuity. that aren't working together in harmony. Imagine that you are the owner of a football team and you hire a general manager and a coach to win games. But instead, they just put out on the field a hodgepodge of different football-related personnel, maybe some cheerleaders, maybe some football players, maybe the manager, maybe some food service, and they're out there running around playing the game with no real communication. This is another problem I see, not only putting together hodgepodges that don't accomplish the goal, but also failing to communicate, the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. Do you have in place a comprehensive plan that includes a way to make sure your income does not run out and it's written? Because we know goals that aren't written down don't get fulfilled. That's a fact of life. Number 2, do you have a plan to reduce risk and make sure that you don't experience a devastating loss or a loss that's outside of your comfort zone and have to spend your life recovering instead of gaining? And number 3, do you have a plan in place to determine exactly what and how much your exposure is to long-term care costs? Some people will joke with me, well, Colin, this isn't vital because, I don't care. I'll be in a nursing home. I'll be out of it, whatever. If you're married, have you thought about the person we call the well spouse, that person you leave behind after you've been bankrupted, who now has to make do in life? Oh, those of you who've been caregivers know what I'm talking about. This is no time to get coy, okay? This is time to be serious and put a plan in place, and that's what we do at Lord & Richards. Give us a call, 720-372-0400. Again, 720-372-0400. The process is neither unpleasant nor lengthy. The process involves sitting down, having a cup of coffee or tea or water, and just enjoying talking to one another about your goals. Maybe sharing with us your records, your statements, like you would with a doctor, and your budget, and then letting us develop a plan for you that starts with understanding your current risks and then builds on that, your income plan, your long-term care plan. 720-372-0400. This is Colin Richards. I'm Denver's Biblical Investment Advisor, and we're talking about the necessity of comprehensive planning today. We've talked about the necessity of a written income plan, the necessity of a written risk reduction plan, and thirdly, the necessity of a comprehensive long-term care plan. And then finally, we're going to talk about the necessity of a tax reduction or tax mitigation plan. Sometimes we call this estate planning because it goes beyond just taxes to getting money where it needs to go. Yes, if we don't do anything, the default is our money goes to the nursing home and to the government. Let's just get that in our heads. Failure to plan is planning to fail. Let's take this estate planning concept. What happens when we die? Well, 50% of Americans don't have a will. 50% are going to die in a state that we call intestate. Okay? And no, it may not go where you want it to go. It goes according to the laws of intestacy. And those laws have been around a long time, and most states adopt very similar rules. And they're rather complex. Yes, in simple situations, it'll go to your wife or to your kids or to your third cousin twice removed. The laws can be rather complex. And as your situation becomes more complex, have you had a divorce, remarriage? Are there stepchildren? Is there a previous spouse? Is there a deceased spouse? And on and on. Are there deceased children? Should your will be set up per stirpes? Okay, or should it be set up per capita or per capita at the generation? There are so many different factors at play, and failing to plan here is really a plan to fail. Now, don't get me wrong. We are not attorneys. Okay, so at Lord & Richards, what we do is we develop a financial plan that addresses the concerns of passing away, and then we work together with an attorney who will develop your actual written estate plan in the form of wills, perhaps a trust if necessary, other important documents such as durable powers of attorney, healthcare directives, and so on. Do you have these documents in place? Have you taken the time? Here's the sad truth. Most Americans, literally, spend more time working on their vacation plans than on what's going to happen to their accumulated life savings, either in retirement or upon death. Now, I know you're driving along or doing your housework and you're feeling guilty and you're like, Colin, don't beat up on me. Don't beat up on me. Well, here's why I feel like I can beat up on you, because I talk to you every week on this show. And all it takes is a conversation, a quick sit down in our offices. Doesn't have to take a generation to put this in place. A matter of hours, really. And you can have a comprehensive plan in place that includes steps taken to make sure that your hard-earned life savings goes to the people you love and to the ministries and causes that you love. And here's a critical component. I've been basing all of this advice on key scriptural components. Remember, at Lord and Richards, our third principle from the Word of God, you can find this on our website, lordandrichards.com, is manage risk like a steward. Do you see that in the risk reduction plan? Our fourth is remember one another in old age. Do you see that in our long-term care plan? And our fifth principle is consider your legacy. A wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. What God is saying is that failing to plan is planning to fail with regard to fulfilling your covenant obligation to be a good steward before God. So we're not just talking about skipping a deadline or not dealing with a non-essential. We're talking about something essential in each one of our homes. And we've got to sit down and work through this. Here's the good news. At Lord and Richards, we take care of the hard work for you. You just bring in your statements and your budget, and we take it from there. And we'll help you by listening first and then going to bat for you and developing the financial independence roadmap so you can be truly financially independent in 4 key areas. Number 1, your income lasts the rest of your life, and we've got a written plan. Number 2, your money is protected substantially from significant market loss in the form of a written risk reduction plan. Number 3, you're avoiding sending all of your money to the nursing homes instead of to your family with a written long-term care plan. And number 4, you're avoiding leaving all your money to the government with a written estate plan or tax mitigation plan. This is so important. Whether you're high net worth or middle America, this is critical and vital to your planning. I want to just step back for a moment and remind you that these conversations are complementary. When we sit down together in our beautiful offices here in Denver, we'll have a great conversation about what's critical and vital to you. Not what we think is most important for you, what you think is most important. Give us a call, 720-372-0400. Again, 720-372-0400. And let's start planning to succeed and put a plan in place on these 4 key areas. Making sure you have enough income to last the rest of your life. Making sure you're not taking excessive risk. Let's just know knowledge is power. Someone wisely said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Well, wouldn't it be valuable for you to have a complimentary stress test on your portfolio that will reveal what those investments you're holding in your hands right now would have done during the 2008 and 9 crash if you held those back then? Maybe you did. Can I ask you a question? What steps have you taken since that disaster to substantially change what you're doing? Did you change advisors? Great. If you didn't change advisors, did you change tactics? Sometimes advisors claim to have changed tactics when all they've done is reshuffle the deck. Instead of, using Vanguard's S&P fund, they're using somebody else's S&P fund. It's essentially the same investments. We can help lay that bare and expose that through our stress test report. And then let us take a look at what the real risks are if someone gets sick in your household. How are we going to make sure they're taken care of financially? But even beyond that, how are we going to make sure the healthy people left behind are taken care of financially? Wouldn't it be tragic for a husband to fail to plan in this area and leave his wife in a devastating financial situation, having lost part of Social Security, maybe lost a pension if the husband failed to plan on a joint life expectancy, maybe having lost part of an annuity payment, once again, if there was no plan for joint, and then maybe having lost significant assets. Is that really what we want for those that we leave behind? And then finally, making sure that when we both pass away or when we pass away, we don't leave it up to the government to decide how our estates get distributed. Let's get a will in place. Let's just get that going first, right? We need a will. Everybody needs a will. Don't die intestate. It's going to mess up what God has placed in your heart you want to do for the people you love and the causes you love. And then let's get rid of excessive taxation on death. That's where it's going to go if we don't put a plan together. It's been a joy to talk to you today about how to really put together a comprehensive plan. We call it a financial independence roadmap. Give us a call. This is Colin Richards, 720-372-0400. Again, 720-372-0400.